how did you become a non-feminist woman? I mean, how did you become non-feminist?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, were you always like? Yeah.
Well, I think it was just I've always been very empathetic and cared a lot about people. I just, humans are my favorite animal, and I just love all animals, but humans are my favorite. So, um, they just, so I just have always loved people, and so when I thought that things were bad, and I thought, when I was learning about feminism early on, I was like, oh, this sounds bad. Like, this is what, like, I was more of a feminist at the time. I was kind of like, yeah, this sounds, this is bad. And I was upset about it. But then, I realized that like a lot of it was half truths and full out lies. And so that I just, it became kind of an interest of mine. And so I learned more about it and such like that. And then I was like, oh, it's a much more complicated situation, as everything is. But people don't really enjoy nuance. They like their simplicity, especially these days.
Mhm. Okay, what is your view on the word patriarchy? What is your view on the patriarchy? Is it real or how? Yeah.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, it's just a fact. I think that term comes from biology, where they talk about different animal species.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly, I think apes or monkeys or primates,
Mm-hmm.
where they're talking about the social structures that they have, and in some social structures, such as I think gorillas and such. I can't remember all the things, but they have what could be termed a patriarchy, where there's the male there's a leader who is a male, and he kind of dictates who is allowed to have sex, who's allowed to have what resources, and of course, being animals trying to survive in the wild, things like sex are very a precious resource,
Mm-hmm.
so that's how it is for the human and animal condition. But then there's orangutans, bonobos. I forget one of the. I can't remember. My brain doesn't hold names that long. These primates, you call it a matriarchy because there's a woman who controlled the thing, and it was more the males are more just kind of play a secondary role in like some of the societal aspects, I guess. So it's just kind of like it's not even really secondary. It's just you can kind of see it as like who's keeping track of the of the resource of sex and of the resource of providing for the family, the people who need to have sex and the babies that are created because of sex. And I think it's really just the as you could call it, the greedy gene. But it's lovely. Everything's just as it should be.
Okay. So would you agree that humans have I mean, that we live in a patriarchy or,
No, no, especially not the term that a feminist use it as.
okay.
We could, yeah, I mean, males have been, stronger and more active in a lot of areas, usually kind of being the ones to build, provide, protect, kind of doing some of the heavier lifting, which makes sense because they are larger. And so by that virtue, and also by the virtue of, women having to, give birth, which is like you could die easily, back then from it even still, and then carry the baby for 9 months and 10 months, whatever, and and stuff like that. So it made sense biologically, biological sense. That's a funny term. For people to differentiate. I'm sorry, to divvy up the labor,
Right.
as it worked for biology. These days, because humans work together so well that they've taken over the entire Earth, and we've become the apex predator on Earth. These days, because of that, everything's so different. We all forget what it was like 100, 300, 500, 1,000, 10,000 years ago, and I think that bigger picture of remembering the human condition and the biological condition itself can make much more sense than just a silly term like patriarchy, and especially I think the patriarchy is under feminist definition is something to do with, men oppressing women throughout all of history and like taking shit from them or some stuff. Everything that men have ever invented, built, designed, or like conceived of, like education and all this, university, government, as soon as it became cushy enough for women to want it, they gave it to them almost freely.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many arguments. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, what is patriarchy? It's a false hypothesis. It's not even a theory. It's a hypothesis that has no actual scientific backing whatsoever.
Okay. What is your view on traditional gender roles?
traditional gender roles. I feel like, as I said, they were necessary and they made sense. Mm-hmm. And, humans are just always doing the best they can,
What is your view on MRAs? Men's
rights advocates. Yeah, or activists. Yeah, I mean, I'm still a little bit active in the on Reddit. A couple of the left-leaning males. There's a page called Left. It's basically an MRA, but for left people.
What is your view on hypergamy?
Can you remind?
Hypergamy is the idea that women choose men based on like social status and money and stuff, not really based on love.
No, biologically, again, it makes sense. I think biologically it makes sense that women were at a disadvantage because they did have to get pregnant. They did have to, they are smaller. They do have, they bleed for like 7 days a month, whatever, however you want to call it. The plight of women that is specific to females, let's put it. It did exist and it did have impact. We can't pretend that's not true. But these days with technology, it allows people to have a fully different system. So the old system doesn't work anymore.
Okay,
and we're
so
saying
hypergamy
we're only telling the women that the old system doesn't work anymore. We're telling the men the old system works, and also what the women say now works. So guys are basically just like, I don't know. Feminists are telling me I shouldn't do this. Fucking other people, these people, they don't even know what's the right way to fucking do things anymore because like nobody can agree on it. But one thing people can agree on is that men need to be doing something for us as a society. They can't be just idle-handedly out there. People get scared about that.
Okay. What is your view on intersectionality?
Oh, it's disgusting. Well, in terms of feminist intersectionality, where it's just, I'm transgender, I'm disabled, I'm, lesbian, I'm, whatever, autistic, all these different things. Mm-hmm. And I feel, I was poor, I was very abused, blah, blah, blah. So it was, I had a lot of, issues, as you can probably tell. But these feminists who like literally just fucking generally have a good life, just as good as anybody, they're not like necessarily impoverished. Usually the impoverished people aren't as feminists even. It's always been like the upper classes, upper middle classes of women who, got bored of, in their gilded cages, I guess, of, taking care of children and keeping the house functional and keeping the family fed and cleaned and all that important stuff. I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
Intersectionality.
Also have really bad ADHD. What's this?
Intersectionality.
Oh yeah, so basically what they're doing is they're taking actual adversities and people with actual struggles, and they're
using them.
They're hiding behind them. They're usurping and commandeering these people's actual struggles, and it's so gross. It's one of the grossest things I've seen happen. Mm-hmm. It's basically like feminists think they are the solution to like all the world's problems because they're the opposite of men, and men were the cause of all the world's problems. Mm-hmm, That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. They use a lot of the LGBT people genuinely have problems. Disabled people genuinely have problems.
Yeah. And now they're trying to make it so that now they're trying to make it if you criticize feminism, you're criticizing black people, disabled people, autistic people, homeless people even though 3/4 of homeless people are men.
Right. What is your view on gynocentrism? The idea that okay.
Again, I think it's a biologically makes sense. I mean, you can go as far as biology or even game theory or just entropy, like pretty much the universe takes certain paths to get to where it gets. And gynocentrism, you could use that term. A lot of people don't like that term, but it's obvious that, we had to give women certain preferential treatments in order to really, fulfill our, as a species, imperative of, again, reproducing. Because that's all really any of this is about. Eating is fun. All this stuff is fun. But, we're here to, like, make more kids so that, this greedy gene project can keep going. And I'm not saying that that's what I think we should be doing. I actually don't think – I think that's silly. I've been told that, like, because I don't want children – that I'm literally just like wasted degenerate genes or whatever. I'm like, I'm having a pretty good time. I mean, an interesting time at least. So, I mean, I can't see this being a waste just because I'm not passing it on to others.
Yeah, it might even be good for the environment and everything.
Yeah, gynocentrism. Yeah, that's a big topic as well. And, and it goes into, the empathy gap.
Right.
And a bunch of things like that. Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the last question is what is your view on being called a pick me girl? Basically, if women,
Yeah,
yeah.
I've been called that, and I was just like, friend, I'm a lesbian, and I've been married for 16 years. But like, yeah, that's just silly. That's just another like shaming tactic. That's all they have, feminists. They have, as soon as you approach them with any sort of logic or even empathy towards men at all, they call you a pick me, and then they just start shaming you, and they start like, whatever they have, they'll just start shaming you for it, and like, there's no logic behind it. It's all emotions, and it's a shaming tactic. And it makes sense. I mean, people shame each other. I mean, one of the ways women had a lot of power throughout history was called soft power, social influence power. Men aren't on their own. Men are fucking dependent on them. Men fucking love women, to the better or worse.